Hello and welcome to the Seahawkers podcast. I'm Brandon Schultz, and today we've got a special guest on the show. We are bringing on Jim Nagy. He is the executive director of the Senior Bowl and former scout for the Seattle Seahawks. He spent 18 years as an NFL scout, and the Senior Bowl, it is coming up February 4th. It's going to be airing on the NFL Network. Jim, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me back on. It's been a while.
It's been a few years because, well, last time we talked, I think it was the 2019 draft season. And then in 2020, I think the Seahawks only had about 3 picks going into the draft that year. And I thought,
that sounds
I don't know
right.
I don't know if I need to be talking to Jim about Senior Bowl prospects in a year where we might not do a whole lot of picking draft picks.
Yeah, no, that sounds right. That sounds like a year John didn't want to have. John likes his draft picks. So
no, and he made that pretty clear this past season when he traded Russell Wilson away and got a boatload of picks. Well, not quite a boatload of picks, but just a lot of high draft picks for Russell Wilson. And I want to talk Senior Bowl. I want to talk scouting, but as a former scout for the Seahawks, I want to start first with kind of your reaction to the Seahawks season. What kind of expectations did you have for them coming into the year after trading away the franchise's best quarterback that we've seen in years?
Honestly, my expectations were probably higher than most people's. And again, maybe I'm tainted because of the conversations and friends I still have in that building. They're pretty high on that roster. I mean, I think what people lost sight of was we were like 1 year removed from a 12-win season, and everyone just thing didn't just fall apart. But I'm not going to sit here and say like I thought Geno Smith was going to have a Pro Bowl year either. I actually thought Drew Lock was going to end up being their guy. And Geno held him off. And so the rest is history. I think that, there's some good young talent on the roster. I don't think Russ was playing great those last couple of years there. And so for them to flip it the way they did and to get rid of a player that probably didn't sound like he wanted to be there anyway. It's a weird divorce really, because that was John's guy. John loved Russell Wilson coming out, and John's never the guy. He will never boast that, this is my guy. Like some people love doing that they got a player drafted. And again, when you're a GM, you don't have to do that, but he spread all the credit around. But that I've read John's actual report on Russell Wilson, that was his guy. So I know that wasn't easy. I know that last year or so probably wasn't an easy deal in the building. I obviously wasn't around for it, but no, to get the haul they got with some really quality picks that you can hit, players like Kenneth Walker and Charles Cross and Abe Lucas. I mean, guys in that range of the draft. I mean, they haven't had a lot of those. So I'm excited for these next couple of years what John and Pete are going to get done.
How would a team really rank a draft class like that? Because, you mentioned the 2 tackles. To get 2 rookie tackles that you could really see be the future of your organization with Charles Cross, Abe Lucas, to get a running back who rushed for over 1,000 yards and came in really 5-6 weeks into the season after the injury to Rashad Penny, and also get a guy on the outside at corner in Tariq Woolen. How do you really, you can't have that kind of expectation going in, but I suppose you would say that you expected to hit on all the guys.
You hope in the first 3 rounds to hit on starters, and maybe not year 1, but by year 2, your top 3 round guys to be starters. After that, 4s, 5s, 6s, hopefully make up the meat of your roster and are good role players at minimum. But Kobe Bryant is a guy that looks like he's going to have a long-term home. He's either as a nickel, or I honestly wouldn't rule out Kobe moving to free safety.
Really?
Yeah, he's got enough. He's so good in zone. He's got really good eyes, and he's got some playmaking ability. He's comfortable from depth. So I could maybe see that in his future. But no, I mean, they nailed it. It's, you like to wait 3 years to grade a draft. I think that's in fairness to all the players. But I mean, with this one, you can at least say with the immediate dividends that it paid, it could end up being an incredible draft in that you locked up 2 premium positions at tackle. You locked up, 2 starting corners. And those are high paid positions. And now you got those 4 positions on rookie contracts for the next for the next 3 years. That's big. So no, they again, and I think there's some guys down the line. I think Boye Mafe is a guy that I think they just need to let him go a little bit. I think we saw what happened in Detroit with James Houston. So I know Mafe is a guy that, just talking to one of the guys in the building the other day, they're excited about what he played the run like. Like they thought he did a really nice job holding up against the run, compared to maybe the expectation was, okay, we're going to bring him in, and athletically he could at least get on the field and affect the quarterback a little bit. But Boye did a really nice job holding up, setting the edge.
Absolutely. And I want to go back, because we talked a little bit about Geno Smith, but that's one of the decisions now that the Seahawks are going to have to make this offseason. And, with what we've seen with quarterbacks with other teams, shoot, we have Jalen Hurts and Brock Purdy in the NFC Championship. And Hurts, yes, he was, top QB at Oklahoma, but he dropped to the second round. Purdy dropped all the way to the last pick in the draft. And now you have Geno Smith, and you thought that Drew Lock might be the guy. So what does that say about kind of the positional value of quarterback? And do you really have to spend the top 5 pick on that quarterback when, you can get this kind of performance among, what we're seeing in the NFC Championship with what we saw from the Seahawks this year that was maybe unexpected? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a huge organizational decision for John and Pete and Trent Kirshner and all those guys that are kind of in that decision-making group, Matt Berry and those guys. Geno obviously exceeded expectations. I think everybody's expectations. And now you got to, are these guys, are the top 3 guys we're talking about, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Will Levis, are they significantly better? Is that a slam dunk upgrade? And if they are, which one of them are going to be around at 5? Certainly wouldn't want to trade up if I were them. I'd like to stay put and get one of those 3. But are they an upgrade? Are they a significant upgrade? Are they a clear upgrade? I don't know if they are. I think the one guy I haven't seen enough play is CJ Stroud. But again, you got Geno. He played Pro Bowl level football. He was really efficient. And now you've got all these high picks. Now let's add around him and see how far we can go with Geno in what it isn't a great quarterback class. Next year, you've got the kid at USC, you got the kid at North Carolina. Beyond that, I'm not sure, what the high end stuff is, but there'll be some depth in that class because a lot of these quarterbacks went back this year. I know we started the Senior Bowl. We had more names on the board. I'm kind of looking over at our board right now. We had more names to start the year at quarterback, and now this thing is so picked over that some of these other all-star games don't even have enough quarterbacks to put on their roster right now. So, because they all portaled and took NIL money and went back. So, I don't know, man, that's a huge decision, obviously, but they've got a lot of ammunition to get Geno some help.
Is there one position over another when you are filling out that Senior Bowl roster? Is quarterback a tough spot to fill in terms of because you want to have the best guys out there to put the best group of guys out on the field for everybody to watch, because it really is the focal point come that weekend of, whether it's, fans wanting to see what players that they're interested in coming up the season, or whether it's just scouts from all the teams going there and coming down on Mobile, Alabama to watch all these guys practice and then ultimately play. Is there one position that's tough to fill with the kind of the cream of the crop from college game?
Probably running back. Honestly, I think we've had a 7-year run with first round quarterbacks. And again, it's just dependent on the year. You can only, like for us, we can only go with what's out there. But running back year in and year out, we've seen it, if you're a good junior running back and you have a track record of production, it makes sense for you to leave, especially where the league's at right now with, kind of devaluing the position. You're not going to get drafted as high when you get to your second contract. Teams are already positioned themselves to move on from a guy. So it's really tough. And again, for us, it's hard to maybe find those guys. But over the last 3 or 4 years, we've had, whether it's the Dameon Pierces, Ramondre Stevenson, Tony Pollard. We've had some guys that are, Pro Bowl caliber running backs. But this year's crew, I think, is our best group. But typically, historically, I would probably say running back is the hardest spot.
So who are we going to be watching at running back this year? Because now the Seahawks, they found a guy that I think they can count on. but Rashad Penny going to be a free agent. I think that Pete Carroll would like to have multiple backs. We did see some good things from DJ Dallas, but that's a position where we see a lot of injuries. I could see the Seahawks maybe going. I don't know if they'd go as high as the second round again, but maybe the third round. Or are there some guys that we should be looking out for come up here in Mobile?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at where they were at that one point late in the year, before Kenneth Walker came back, I mean, they were playing, DJ Dale and Travis Homer, and again, those guys are good players, but there was a clear drop off from Kenneth Walker and Rashad Penny to those groups. So, and again, it's the style of running back that Pete and John look for too. I mean, it's just the nature. They're going to lose. Backs are going to go down in that system because they're looking for big, physical, contact-seeking, tone-setting running backs. I mean, that's just what they want to be. So you have to have a lot of bodies. I would say for this game, we've got 4 or 5 guys that I think could be NFL starters. Tajay Spears, Tulane went off late in the year, really went off the whole year. But in that Cotton Bowl game against USC, I think he's an NFL starter. I think Kenny McIntosh from Georgia is an NFL starter. I think Roshan Johnson, Bijan Robinson's backup from Texas, has a chance to be an NFL starter. There's a lot of people don't think he's getting out of day 2, as a college backup. Chase Brown, Illinois. So there's good depth in that group. And I think a lot of those guys are going to be at minimum like complementary backs. But I brought up Roshan's name. I mean, he's a guy that fits what they want to be. He's 225, 230-pound back, went to Texas as a quarterback, like the best kid in the program, intangibles wise, tough, competitive, been a great special teams player, can catch it out of the backfield. He's really a do-it-all back. And there's still a lot of tread left on the tire because Bijan was really toting it. So that could be a really interesting option. Just watching him over the years, like he fits what they want to be.
Well, and we've even seen Pete take a guy like Chris Carson in the 7th round of the draft, who's come in and he was, a top back for so many years. So yeah, if there's any guys who have maybe suffered injuries and that's kind of why they've hung on until their senior year. Cause as you mentioned, I mean, I don't know if you guys are going to go through like a potential branding shift to be like, mostly Senior Bowl, but guys who are in their last year is okay if they play in this game too. I don't know if even that's possible.
Well, we can bring juniors if they graduate by December. So that was a rule that was put in about 10 years ago.
Gotcha.
And we've tried to take full advantage of that. I think we had 12 last year. We had 16 the year before that. So that's helped. It would be great someday if all the juniors were eligible to play in all-star games. I really don't think like an all-star game. I think the conventional wisdom on Park Avenue is that if juniors could play in an all-star game, that would be an enticement for them to leave school early, and they don't want to upset the apple cart with the college coaches, and because it is a free feeder system for the NFL. I think that was kind of historically been the talk. But nowadays, I mean, we're in a totally different landscape right now. These guys aren't making the decision to come out or leave based off an all-star invite. So hopefully it gets to that point. But, what I can't wait to get through is all this COVID, extra year of COVID nonsense, because it's so hard identifying like who's a senior. And I think college coaches are abusing it. And who knows, I might too if I was trying to keep my job at a college school. But like this extra COVID year was not created for college football players to get a 6th year of on-field eligibility. Is created for the softball player who missed her senior year, some of that stuff. But these college coaches, I mean, they're talking some of these quarterbacks are going back for a 6th year, 7th year. So it's just, it's been abused a little bit, and it makes it really hard to identify like who's eligible to play in all-star games and not. So I can't wait to get past it all.
that just throws an extra little bit into it for you. With that, 5th overall pick that the Seahawks got in the Russell Wilson trade, I know it has a lot of Seahawks fans looking at who could be available with that 5th spot. And I know we've talked to, some of the, you mentioned some of the top quarterback names, maybe not expected to be at the Senior Bowl unless there's an announcement that you have to make. But who are some of the guys, whether it's maybe interior defensive line, interior offensive line, a pass rusher that could be available, or that Seahawks fans should really be watching for as a potential 5th overall pick?
Yeah, I think the best scenario for the Hawks is if these quarterbacks, some of them get pushed up and some teams trade up. I think they'd love to be staring at Will Anderson from Alabama. I think that would be a no-brainer. Again, a lot of their heat came off the edges with Nwosu and Daryl Taylor, well, they both have 9.5 sacks. You got Mafe as a third guy next year going into year 2. But if Will Anderson were staring you there at 5, you couldn't pass on him. I mean, you couldn't pass on the player, and you couldn't pass on the person. I mean, because his football character, his personal character, like off the charts. He's going to be one of the cleanest prospects in the draft. Then Jalen Carter. I mean, I think there's some questions about some things that have been brought up in the past, but he does give inside pressure, and that's what they need. They need a guy that can disrupt from inside, so that would fill a need, obviously. And then a guy that I saw Daniel Jeremiah mock to him was Tyree Wilson, who we have committed to come play here in the Senior Bowl. And guys like him, we used to say when I was with the Patriots, like some certain guys don't grow on trees. Tyree Wilson doesn't grow on trees. He's 6'6", 275. He's got 36-inch arms. He's got an 86-inch wingspan. He's explosive. Like, it's hard to find a long body that is also explosive at the same time. Most of those explosive guys are more Aaron Donald, sawed-off body types. But yeah, his best football is still ahead of him. So, and he can rush from anywhere. I mean, he can give you some edge stuff, but really more inside with the length. Once he learns how to use his length consistently against guards, he's going to be a crazy mismatch. So after that, like, position value wise, I don't know where you're going. Maybe if there's a corner there, if it makes sense, to add another corner. But I know they got Trey Brown coming back, and they like Trey a lot.
Right.
So they might have 3. They might have Kobe, Trey, and Tariq. They might be done at corner. So like, what other position makes sense at 5? I mean, you got to find guys that put heat on the quarterback. They got 2 that can protect the quarterback at tackle, so you're good there. You're not drafting an interior offensive lineman at 5. That's a waste. So, I mean,
is it a waste though? What if it's the top guy? What if you get the top guy at guard and you have him?
It's a
you
waste.
think so?
You can find them.
All right.
I don't know. But it depends on how the board falls too. I mean, at some point you just got to take the best player, if like a true position, a prime position. But again, if you're not taking quarterback, you've got outside pass rushers, you've got 2 tackles, you've got 3 young corners you like. Where are you going to go? I don't know. Pete loves his safeties. Maybe there's I know there's not one in the junior class that would go out, or in the senior class that would go that high. I haven't paid attention to the junior class, but it'll be interesting. That's why I really hope some of those quarterbacks go. So one of these guys like Wilson or Carter or Anderson is staring at them.
Well, there's some other guys that have that potential then maybe later on in the first round, because they get to keep their own pick, which ends up being in the late teens. So maybe whether it's linebacker, maybe the interior offensive line makes more sense there toward that.
That's kind of the sweet spot. That's kind of your sweet spot for, you look at last year's draft, like Zion Johnson, who was a guy we had here in Mobile that went 17 to the Chargers, going to go to many Pro Bowls. Like that 15 to 20 range for, center guard, you can get a perennial Pro Bowler in that range.
Yeah. Well, you've got a few guys that I know I'll be interested in watching here coming up. I know 2 guys on the edge, and I don't know where they're going to fall in terms of draft projections, but you got Will McDougald IV out of Iowa State, Derek Hall out of Auburn playing on the American team. Talk about those guys.
Yeah, so Will, Will's like 240-ish. Be interesting to see like what he comes in at, but he's long. He's got 34-inch arms, really good high school hooper, high jumper. I think he's a 6'9" high jumper out of high school, explosive, really productive. I forget what the sack numbers were, but over 30 in his career. Bendy athlete on the edge. So again, really high upside as an outside pass rusher. And then who was the other guy? Oh, Derek Hall. I mean, they're very different. We actually had Derek here in the office today, down here at headquarters. We did a little local media day that Derek came to, but thicker man, bigger, more powerful, has speed to power, and he can really run in a straight line and chase. And he's a really high character guy as well. He's like top kid in that Auburn program. They kind of felt like he was the guy that really helped keep things together when they let Coach Harsin go this year. So two totally different rushers, but both guys that have been really productive at the college level, and they just have a different rush game, and they'll be good pros. They just go about it a different way.
Well, you talk about a character guy, and I feel like we always get some guys who exhibit a lot of personality at the Senior Bowl. Who are some of those personalities that could resonate with fans coming up?
I know one for sure is Cody Mauk, the left tackle from North Dakota State. So Cody's, you could probably Google or search Twitter on some of the stuff. Like he went there as a 220-pound tight end out of high school, really clean cut, clean shaven kid. And then they do the side-by-side pictures of what Cody morphed into 5 years later. And now he's, 310 pounds and he's got long red hair. He looks like a Viking. He's got his two front teeth knocked out. He does like there's an end zone he does this first down celebration thing every time the team gets a first down. Like Cody does some sort of dance, and he's a trip, man. He grew up on a farm. The one story I'll share, I went up to Fargo to give him his invite this year, and he was talking about. I asked him, I said, Cody, where are you from? And he's like, well, this little town like 45 minutes south of here. It's awesome. I can come up here in the summer, get workouts in, go back home, work on the farm. And I was like, oh, really? And we started talking about the farming. He's like, yeah, if I can play a couple years and then move back here. And I go, wait. What do you mean? If you can play a couple years? I'm like, dude, he doesn't know how good he is. I'm like, you are going to play as long as you want to play. Like, you're one of the few guys, you're going to retire on your own terms someday. So you'll be able to move home and buy whatever farm in the state of North Dakota you want. But no, he's a character, man. He's a ton of fun. I can't wait to get him down here. I know it's Quinn Miners from Wisconsin Whitewater a couple of years ago became kind of the fascination of the week with his big belly hanging out of his jersey. Daniel Jeremiah kind of jumped all over him for the week, and Cody's going to be the same guy. Like he's going to, he'll be the talk of the week because he's a dang good player. I don't think he gets out of the top 40 picks. I think he's got a really good chance to be a first round pick. But then just the way he carries himself, he has fun out there. Like he'll be having fun out of practice, so he'll be a fun one.
Well, and that's one of the cool things that I think that you and your team seem to find guys that, they're not with the top guys. Yes, you're going to see guys from Alabama and Auburn and the SEC schools and as well as the other conferences, the other major conferences. But then, you got a guy from North Dakota State in Mock. And then, you brought up Miners, who is came from a smaller school. Any other smaller school guys that we should be on the lookout for?
A couple from like unconventional schools. We haven't had a Princeton guy. We've had two Princeton guys in the history of the Senior Bowl. The last one was like 2012, but before that it was like 1950 or something like that. So they've got a receiver, Andre Yoshivas, who is all Ivy League guy, NCAA heptathlon champion. So really high-end athlete. He reminds me, there was a little Christian Watson to his game. We've got him graded right about the same spot we did Christian heading into the week, and so does the league. I mean, the league a year ago at this time had Christian the 4th or 5th round, has a great week in Mobile, runs fast at the combine, and next thing you know, he's the 34th overall pick in the draft. I think Andre could move up. I would never peg that on a player to say that he's going to just skyrocket like Christian. That's not fair to Andre, but I certainly think he's going to help himself quite a bit when teams see the speed down here against good competition. And then Isaiah Land, there's a pass rusher at Florida A&M, HBCU school, who 2 years ago was the Buck Buchanan winner for the top FCS player in the country, and led the country with 19 sacks. And it's kind of a mystery what Isaiah's going to show up weighing, because this year he was in the 215 range, and I think we all know that a guy that size can't rush at the next level. He's got to put on weight. So I hope he comes in here like 225, 230, and teams see like him trending in the right direction. And if he could get to be, because he has really natural rush talent and movement, but he just needs to get thicker and stronger. So we'll see. I think both those guys could be setting themselves up for a big week.
I don't know if we traditionally see a lot of service school guys there either. And now you've got, I see Andre Carter out of Army going to be at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, and he'll be the highest drafted Army guy since like 1946, 47. They had the number 2 overall pick that year, was the Heisman winner, Glenn Davis. I think it was Glenn Davis. So Andre showed up in some of the mock first round draft stuff over the summer. I felt like that was a little rich personally. I told Andre that, but he is a really intriguing athlete. I hate the word intriguing. I shouldn't have used it. I try not to use it. I think it's a cop out word, but he's super long and he's really agile, and he wins with that. He's bouncy. He's a bouncy athlete, and he's so tall that against like group of 5 schools, he kind of just swims over dudes. He's got to add bulk. He's got to add strength. He knows that. Coming from a service academy, I think the NFL understands he'll be able to do that. He certainly has the frame to do it. And yeah, I don't think he gets out of day 2. And for a service academy guy, like that's pretty darn high to be drafted. His numbers were down a little bit sack wise this year. I think he had 14.5 as a junior this year. I forget where they ended up, but they weren't near double digits. I think he just got a lot of extra attention this year. And so it's going to be a big week. I'm excited for Andre to get down here too. I'm excited to see what he looks like. He's had, a couple months here now since the Army Navy game to pack some good weight out. He's been training in New Jersey, so we'll see.
Well, as a Navy guy, we don't need to bring up the Army Navy game, Jim. We don't need to go back to that. But I am interested in linebacker because with this year, I mean, the Seahawks, they seem to struggle at linebacker this year. And so and in terms of depth too, they had some injuries there, and Jordan Brooks obviously going down late in the season. Who knows if he's going to be ready to go come week 1 with his injury. So I am interested in what, some potential Senior Bowl linebackers.
Yeah, it was a bummer with Brooks's injury, man. He's a really good player. I hated to see that, but I would stay right in most of the Hawk fans' backyard over at Wazoo with Deion Henley. I mean, he's a guy that I had a lot of fun watching this year. It's hard not to like him when you watch just the energy and the tempo he plays with. He's he was eligible last year for the Senior Bowl. He played in Nevada, and we had 3 guys on their offense in the game last year, and including Romeo Doubs, who had a pretty good rookie year this year for Green Bay. And Deion just fell below the line for us. I think we had a late round grade, 6th or 7th round grade on him last year. And he was one of those guys, the portal just did him well. He found a good home. He found a good match. And he got a lot better. He plays downhill. He's physical. He's got some violence to him. I know the Seahawks will like that. And he runs and he hits. He can really run. He's a good blitzer. He makes plays in coverage. He's kind of got sneaky ability in coverage. He's got really nice zone feel, and he can run seams because he's fast. So there's a lot to like, man. There's a good one right in the backyard. I know that'd be a hometown. It'd be a hometown favorite pick.
Well, this next guy, I don't know if he's a hometown pick, but he's on my list of guys to watch because he plays on the interior of the defensive line. Byron Young out of Alabama. I want to be. What do you think about him? Are there any other guys that I should put down on my list at that spot?
Yeah, Byron is, we had his teammate in the game last year, Phil Mathis. We had Byron in the office today too, along with Derek Hall. And, Phil ended up going in the 2nd round of the Commanders last year. And I think that Byron's safely in that range too, because again, Phil is a really good football player. But Byron's got a little more twitch and a little more like upfield juice to him as a pass rusher, like more upside in that role. Where Phil was just a really good heavy rundowns player. And Byron's got versatility in scheme in front. I mean, you can move that guy around. So yeah, he's certainly an interesting one. I'm going to cheat again. A guy that you don't hear a lot about, like I know they need inside presence. Zach Pickens from South Carolina would be a really good rundowns guy, and I think there's more to him rushing the passer than maybe he was able to show in college. A lot of these big guys in college, like they play this square stance, and even back to when we took Jaron Reed when I was up there, I scouted Jaron at Alabama, and they play him in this square read stance, and he can never just fire off the football. And so there's Zach, and then Keon White's a guy I've been talking about on a lot of these podcasts from Georgia Tech, and he's a versatile player, high-end athlete, 293 pounds, but plays and moves like a 270-pound guy. And really natural stringing together pass rush moves. I think the one-on-ones, he might be the big winner of the week. I think he's gonna kill it in one-on-ones. I'd be shocked if he didn't. So we're talking about Hawks needing some inside pass rush. Keon White would be a name for you to keep an eye on.
Well, why don't we close this out with quarterback, Jim? We keep waiting for the Seahawks to use a draft pick higher than the 7th round on quarterback. We haven't seen it since Russell Wilson in 2012. Could this be the year that we see the Seahawks draft a quarterback sometime in the first 6 rounds?
I don't know, man. I mean, it's the Geno decision,
But what about
To me,
the whole philosophy of pick a quarterback every year? I mean, shoot, Brock Purdy, the last pick of the draft, and look at what that decision made and what it changed for the Niners this year.
Hey, I'm all for it. I'm a big believer in that theory, the Ron Wolf theory. But there's going to be some interesting guys, in terms of our game. And we're not going to get Will Levis. He was really our only shot at a first-round quarterback because he's really the only senior that is going to be up there. I think Anthony Richardson from Florida has a chance to go late in the first. I don't think he's going to be up there in that top mix. He's just very raw, just really needs to play more football. And the hard part is at the NFL, like, you don't get a chance to play more football when it's not meaningful. Like these guys are all getting rushed onto the field way too early. He probably should have stayed in another year, to be quite honest. But like for our game, I mean, there's some guys that are interesting that Jaron Hall from BYU, Max Duggan from TCU had a great year, Clayton Tune from Houston, Jake Haener, who you guys kind of know in the backyard up there, Jake Haener being at UW for a little bit.
Right.
But all those guys right now, like I'm excited about it because they're all in that 4th, 5th round mix. That's where all the teams kind of have those guys clumped in. And there's always a guy that kind of climbs out of that. We brought up Jalen Hurts. He was down here a couple of years ago, and everyone thought he was going to go in the 4th or 5th round. Has a good week here, throws it really good at the combine. I was there watching that workout, and goes in the 2nd round. And now, look, he was underdrafted. I mean, it looks like he's going to get a franchise deal this offseason. So you never know. You never know who's going to kind of break out of that mix. So I'm excited about it. But yeah, I mean, there's certainly, that's where this quarterback class is really settled senior wise, is in the 4th and 5th rounds. Just got to take the right one,
Absolutely. He's Jim Nagy, executive director of the Senior Bowl. And yes, the Senior Bowl is coming up February 4th. Jim, I know you've got a lot of work to do between now and then, so I appreciate all the time that you can give to the show, and really looking forward to watching that game coming up.
Yeah, thanks for having me back on. It's always good. It's always good talking to the Hawks.